Hello, everybody. I have a very special, um, I guess I'll call it Trash Fire Tarot, today. Um, for those that follow me know I do the daily polls as well as the podcast, the month ahead and week ahead. Sometimes you get a message that is too big for text, to make it really make sense. And so the card of today was the Knight of Swords. And the Knight of Swords is the navigator for the month of June. So this feels like one of those days where the broader June energy becomes very personal, very impactful. Um, Unavoidable. Really reinforcing some of those themes that I talk about in the month ahead for June. Um, the thing we are seeing as this collective weather now moves through the body, and the month's fighter jet becomes today's cockpit, right? So the question is not just now, today, at least in terms of today, where is June taking us? It is, how are we responding? How are we reacting to where June is taking us, to the things we are thinking, the things that we are feeling? Um, and the Knight of Swords is air in motion. You're right. Thought becomes action. Speech becomes consequence. Even news becomes reaction in a sense, and a decision made before the dust has settled. Right. It can be, the Knight of Swords can be that impulsive reaction. And it's not bad energy, right? But it is volatile. And the Knight of Swords is brilliant. They cut through the fog. They cut through the bullshit. They can name the thing everyone else is tiptoeing around. You know, and they move when everyone else is frozen. And but they can also escalate, right? And that's that impulsiveness, that boorishness that some comes out sometimes, and they can confuse urgency with accuracy, and they can weaponize language before wisdom um has had its moment, before there's been discernment, right? So it's not, so today's message isn't slow down. It is aim before you accelerate. It is discernment, as always. It's always discernment. So we have a few things that I want to talk about. We have the Mercury Saturn square, sort of sword meets wall, right? Mercury wants to um speak, it wants to move, it wants to name, interpret, explain, text, post, decide, respond. And Saturn isn't saying, it's not, don't do that. It's that hand on your shoulder, like, well, hold on a second, define your terms, check your facts, and accept that language, putting thought to words, has consequences. And is that thought, is it for you? And maybe it needs to be, maybe that's it. Maybe it's for you. Maybe it's you to think about. You can have a conversation with yourself, sit with it. Or is it to share? Not every thought that goes through our head needs to be shared. And that is one of the glaring issues with social media, right? is that it's so easy just to react and be like, I'm angry, so I'm gonna make this angry post. I'm gonna, this person said a mean thing, genuinely mean, and so now I'm gonna bully them because I'm morally, supreme in this, right? Like my point of view, is better, so now I'm gonna bully them for being a bully. And then we have this like toxic cycle that goes on and on and on and on. And so there can be this feeling of frustration because that Knight of Swords energy wants clean movement, and Saturn introduces friction. Not to be, a brat, not to be difficult, but because sometimes we need those delays, we need those limits, we need hard truths. um, and uncomfortable conversations, mental heaviness, blocked communication, um, structural reality. It can all feel like, trying to fly a fighter jet through a a terrible, terrible lightning storm. Um, and that friction is useful, and that is that lightning energy, that disruption that Uranus brings. And Saturn is not stopping the night, because the night, um it's not stopping them because it's wrong to move. It's not even necessarily stopping, it's slowing them down because it's stopping the night from becoming reckless. The square forces discipline into the sword, right? It asks, is this thought mature enough to become action? Is this reaction actually useful? Or am I reacting from a place of grief, pain, unhealed trauma? And am I just projecting that onto the other person, or onto the subject, right? Is this truth, or is it just adrenaline? And so the mind may want to leap today, but Saturn is going to ask it to keep its feet on the ground long enough to discern. Okay. And then so we also have the Venus Jupiter conjunction. If, I'm sure nobody's heard about this, right? Very, very small, no big deal. Um, but it's also, in all seriousness, it's also not in a perfect square, but it is squaring Chiron as well. And Chiron is a part of this Venus Jupiter conjunction. And I think it's important to understand that, because yes, Jupiter expands and Venus is about lovely things, but expansion doesn't come without responsibility. Okay. And for us to expand, there's usually a lesson that we need to learn. And then, that's Saturn stuff. Saturn teaches so Jupiter can expand. And there is this air of expansion around things like tenderness and beauty and love and pleasure and protection and the possibility of grace. And it can feel like a cosmic opening. And it is a reminder that abundance exists. But it's also a reminder that abundance isn't, a sack of coins being handed out to everybody. It's not capitalism. That's not abundance. Um, because it's a reminder, this is Cancer, right? So it's a reminder that care exists, nurture exists, and there is still sweetness in the world, even while the sky is throwing like lightning charged daggers at us. Um, and that square to Chiron, though, it reminds us that like there's also pain inherent. And and Chiron is not just a wound, Chiron is a teacher. Right, Chiron was a brilliant, brilliant philosopher and scientist and herbologist, and just like was a brilliant, brilliant mind, but was born with this wound of being rejected, and then the wound that he received from the poisoned arrow that ultimately led to him giving up his immortality and becoming part of the Sagittarius constellation. Right. So very multifaceted, but the wound is still there. And this expansion and this beauty and grace of Venus, of Jupiter, right, with Chiron, there is kind of like an undercurrent. Like there is generational trauma that we have to remember to really be able to expand past that, right? There is ancestral within our own lives trauma. There's childhood trauma, but there's generational trauma throughout the entire world. And we can't forget that. And we have to remember that wound in order to grow past it, in order to heal it, in order to really experience the abundance that is being expanded, right? And so today may bring up wounds about receiving and worth, belonging, safety, protection, being included, being allowed to have goodness without immediately being afraid that it's going to be taken away. And this is where the Knight of Swords can get defensive. When tenderness hits a wound, the first instinct may to be to intellectualize it, argue with it, outrun it, distract from it, cut it apart, so we don't have to feel it, right? And we need to let the sword. So because this is air, right? The swords are air. This thought. We need to let this thought, this wound, be spoken into reality. We need to accept it, not attack it, not lament it, just accept it, right? And there's a difference between clarity and cruelty, and today wants clarity, not reacting from a wound, not being a bully in response to another bully. So there's a lot of air energy today, right? Just in thinking. So we have Gemini, that storm field where the lightning storms are because of Uranus and information, messages, choice, language, that trickster energy, but also, speed and contradiction and misinformation. The nervous system is trying to process 12 tabs open, right? Got a TV going, got a playlist going, got a book on tape going, multiple conversations, and like we can't do everything at once. We can't. And today, once, especially with the Saturn square, Mercury-Saturn, right? Hone in, not forever, but at least today, hone in on one of those tabs, a few of those tabs. Like just go in a bit. Don't try to be everything to everybody. Nurture yourself because Mercury's in Cancer, right? So this isn't just about like being everything all at once. It's about being who you truly are, and that is multifaceted for every single one of us. We all have multiple tabs that we want to have open at all times, and that's one of the brilliant things about us. And we can't expect to live in all of those with all of our energy 24/7. We have to pick lanes every now and then, right? We have to have discernment. We have to focus. Um, we have Libra, right? Venus and the Jupiter conjunction. Venus rules Libra, is the moral calibration. It's fairness, it's relationship, justice, harmony, balance, accountability, community. Libra asks whether the sword is being used to restore balance or we're just swinging to win. Justice is not punishment. Justice is also our truth. Are we being true to ourselves? And we have Aquarius, with traditional rulership being Saturn, part of that Mercury-Saturn square. So this is the collective grid. systems, networks, technology, ideology, future thinking, architecture of the group mind. And Aquarius asked, what happens when private thought becomes collective currents? And again, that's the discernment, right? Like Gemini is good at that Gemini energy is those 12 tabs. And then we find the balance with Libra, right? It wants us to hold on, like these are all great. They're all great, and we will get to them. But let's take a step back. Let's breathe. Let's find the balance. What are we focusing on? And then Aquarius brings that to the collective, right? It plugs it into the collective grid. So the Knight of Swords today is not just, personal irritation or mental restlessness. It is a part of a larger air pattern. Words move through networks. Ideas can become alliances. Narratives can become weapons. Clarity can become liberation, or distortion can become control. And today feels like a day when something may need to be said, decided, named, right, mentally cut through. And the medicine is precision. Do not swing the sword wildly just because the storm is loud. Do not let the speed of the day convince you that every thought deserves immediate action. Close some of those tabs. For the love of gods, please close some of those tabs. Do not mistake being forceful for being correct. Do you need to respond to that hateful comment? Are you advocating, or are you just projecting your own insecurities and bullying someone that you disagree with? Even though it might be, right or morally just to disagree with them, where are you acting from? Where's that energy coming from? And is it worth putting that energy into an online argument with a person that is not going to change their mind, especially with, you know, people crashing out on them? And it's not a defense for shitty people. Like, be protect your energy and be very mindful of what you're putting it towards, right? Um, the Knight of Swords is brave enough to charge forward, and that Mercury square Saturn asks to be mature enough to know where we are charging. The Venus, Jupiter, and Chiron energy asks to be tender enough not to turn pain into a weapon. Transmute that pain into medicine. Think about Chiron and what he did in terms of being a healer. So it's not just the wound, it's the wounded healer. Focus on both of those. Take that pain and transmute it into medicine. Even when we move quickly, it can't be carelessly. Speak clearly and not cruelly. Decide firmly, but not out of panic. So in closing, I want to look at that air energy just a little bit more, because it is, I think, very profound to get the Knight of Swords. Again, it's come up so many times, is the embodiment of kind of all that air energy. And we see it in the sky with these transits that are occurring today, with these aspects that are occurring today. So I can't ignore it, and I don't think it's just coincident, right? I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I did. We have Mercury, right, in that Mercury-Saturn square. Mercury ruled Gemini, so it is Mercury is currently ruling Uranus right now, right? Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. Uranus, modern ruler. So again, like both aspects of that are being represented in that Uranus is in Mercury ruled Gemini, and we have the Mercury-Saturn square with Saturn ruling Aquarius traditionally. And then we have the Libra-Jupiter, or the Venus-Jupiter conjunction with Venus ruling Libra. So with Mercury square Saturn, we get a direct tension between two kinds of air. We have Gemini as the moving mind, the message, the headline, the nervous system, and sometimes even the joke and the trick, the data point, contradictions. notifications going off like bam, 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 those lightning storms, especially with Uranus in the mix, right? So we're in that cockpit of the jet fighter and the notifications, maybe we're low on fuel, maybe we, whatever. I'm not I don't fly planes, so this analogy is going to be cut short. But you get my drift, right? Like it's lights going off in the cockpit, and we're overwhelmed, we're jolted, right? And Aquarius is the system. It's the network. It is that grid with the lights going off, right? Pluto is in Aquarius right now and it's extracting. It is going underneath and bringing up. It is teaching us ground up, right? Not top down, ground up to build stable structures. The ones, we're analyzing power structures right now and we're seeing what doesn't work. So it is the structure of the collective mind. It can be ideology, future, right? Future thinking, technology, um, and the architecture underneath that conversation. Again, because especially with Pluto there, we're extracting and bringing to the surface. We're analyzing. So Mercury square Saturn is not just communication feels hard. The message hits this wall of consequence. Mercury wants to move. Saturn says, hold on, where are we going? Mercury wants to speak. Saturn says, hold up. Is this true? Is, are you sure? Right? Do you understand the consequences of what you're about to say? Mercury wants to connect the dots. And Saturn stops us and says, are those dots real? Or is this misinformation? Are you being led astray and focusing too much energy into distractions? And this is where the Knight of Swords becomes extremely important because the Knight, again, wants to charge. He wants to say the thing, share the thing, decide the thing, cut through the fog and cut through the bullshit, right? And sometimes they're right. Sometimes the fastest person in the room sees the fire before anyone else smells the smoke. But under the Mercury Saturn square, the sword, the thought has to pass inspection. It's really, really teaching us discernment. And the transit puts weight on that language. And words are not just thoughts today. Words can become structure. Words become records. And again, consequences. Words become part of the collective grid. So what are you plugging into the collective grid? And is it beneficial to our future? And that is very Aquarius. And because Gemini is involved, the danger is speed without discernment. It's misinformation, reactionary thinking, nervous system posting, right? Doom scrolling and getting so locked in your own doom that you're just responding to things out of your own fear. Cleverness mistaken for wisdom, right? Arguments to become architecture before anyone checks the foundation. So again, the Knight of Swords is not being told to stop, but to aim. Speak clearly, but do not speak carelessly. Mercury is in Cancer. Move quickly, but not blindly, right? And let the sword cut through, let thought cut through distortion, not accountability. And then we have the Venus Jupiter conjunction, right? So we have Libra's ruler. So symbolically, this is gorgeous because Venus ruling Libra brings us back to justice, which was a navigation card for the week ahead of this week. I do recommend, if you're getting anything out of these or this is the first time you've seen me, please check out the podcast, listen to the month ahead for June, listen to the week aheads. Um, but Libra is not just aesthetics, right? And pleasing everyone at the dinner table. Libra isn't just trying to be charming while a chandelier catches fire. Libra is balance. It is equity. It's social harmony. It's relationships, proportion, moral beauty, the sacred geometry of your life matters and so does mine. We have to remember Aphrodite as the um, through line to Venus. When the Romans, and Audrey and I talk about this on our podcast, Retrograde Radio, in more depth. But the Romans really softened the idea of Aphrodite when, when they made Venus, when they translated into their Venus, they took away all of the rage and the real justice against the unnatural way of things, because the Romans were imperialists, right? So that did not work. Women being powerful and having the right to be, rageful against patriarchal systems. We can't have that spreading. Sound familiar? So and because Jupiter's in the mix now, we expand that, and then again, what if justice is not punishment? Justice is restoration, reminding us what is natural. And if abundance, it's not hoarding. It's, beauty is not decoration, right? Um, those are all things that are evidence that life has not surrendered. There is like a beauty in the natural world with no decoration, right? Like you can step out your door and look at trees and see the natural world just showing up and doing what it does every day, regardless of what's going on in our stupid human lives. And it's absolutely gorgeous. That is Venus, right? Um, and Venus Jupiter, it certainly is a blessing, can be a blessing, but it's not necessarily a soft one, right? Expansion does not come without pain points. I've talked about this before, but you put a glass of water into a freezer, and that expands, the glass shatters because that vessel can't contain the expansion. It wasn't ready for that expansion. We have to be ready for it. We have to be aligned. Saturn teaches so Jupiter can expand. So we can, right. So we need to be aligned with what abundance is. And especially with Chiron square in the background, this conjunction can touch upon the wound, like I said, around worth and belonging and safety and care. It can ask why receiving feels dangerous. It's that vulnerability that we're, and community is vulnerability, and we're so scared of it, right? We've been conditioned to be scared of it, and abundance feels suspicious because we're told that it's unnatural, that we have to, our worth is tied to our productivity, right? Our abundance is tied to our productivity. It's a paycheck. It's what's in the bank account. It's our credit score, but it's not. It actually isn't, right? The powers that be, the energies, the, spirit, ancestor, they do not care about capitalism. So while Mercury square Saturn says be responsible with the truth, we have Venus conjunct Jupiter, saying be generous with what heals. One hand, we have the sword. Excuse me, we have the sword and discipline. The other is the open hand of discernment. And together they create a powerful question for the Knight of Swords. Can you tell the truth without abandoning love? And that is, so you have Mercury, you have Saturn, right? We're trying to get to that collective grid and plug in something that actually works. So we have the three air rulers, this sort of trine of energy. With Mercury and Gemini saying, name what is happening, right? Saturn in Aquarius saying, understand the systems behind it. And Venus in Libra saying, choose the response that restores balance. That is the Knight of Sword at their best, not just fast, not loud, not just clever, but clear, precise, and morally oriented. And this is why today feels like a concentrated form of that June's Navigator energy. The month already had the Knight of Swords as the ship. And now today's card repeats it. It feels like the sky is saying, pay attention to how you use your mind today. because the sword can become a weapon of panic or it can become a tool of justice. And Mercury square Saturn sharpens the blade through pressure. Venus conjunct Jupiter reminds us what the blade is meant to protect. And, um, Chiron reminds us of the ancestral wound that we need to come together and heal. The air is loud today, and it's carrying, several messages, and the truth has to be disciplined. Justice has to be loving, and speed has to serve the future, not just reaction. All right. Thank you for following along on this impromptu card of the day video. I might be doing more of these in the future. We will see. I just felt pulled to do it for this one. So as always, thank you. I love you all. And until next time, I will see you in the stars.